please stand for the pledge. Mr. Thompson, would you lead us, please? If you'd remain standing for just a minute, please.
I'm Ken Olish, representing I'm one of the elders at Pataskala Grace, and so I would like to take a moment and ask God's blessing upon this evening. Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for today. We thank you again that you are a good, good Father, and all things that are good come from you. And Lord, we thank you for these good people who are standing here tonight, who have been willing to give their time and their energy to serve the people of Pataskala. And I pray, Lord, this evening that you'll bring your Spirit upon them, that they'll be here in a spirit of peace, a spirit of unity, and that the wisdom that you have will be upon them, and that they'll make good decisions tonight for the betterment of this community. And we again thank you. In the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ, we ask all this in his name. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Always need a nice uplifting message to get going here. Kathy, roll call, please.
Powell,
Here.
Hayes,
Here.
Barstow,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Picken,
Here.
Walter,
Here.
Carter,
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. We're going to do things a little bit differently tonight. We're going to have a quick executive session, but we would like to, we'll go ahead and do citizens' comments so that if anybody has to leave, at least they can speak their piece tonight. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? Okay, executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G4.
Mayor,
Oh,
need a
sorry.
motion
We need a
to go
motion
into
for
it,
that.
please.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Invited into the executive session is B.J. King, City Administrator, Jimmy Nicholson, Finance Director, Brian Zetz, Law Director, and Jeff Stankunas, Attorney.
I have a motion on the floor. I need a second. Second. Seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion and roll.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Picken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We
We'll
going
be headed
upstairs?
upstairs.
Upstairs?
7:03.
Going into executive session. Yep, 7:03. That's all right. I keep forgetting we have 12 lawyers in the room. And Mrs. Carter, discussion and roll.
Hayes,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Picken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Okay, out of executive session at 7:16. Introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion and roll.
Barstow,
Yes.
Yes.
Picken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes. On to reports. Let's see, tonight I'll be asking for a motion towards the end of the meeting. It's come to my attention, I always ask you well in advance for a motion to waive so we can have camping and campfires and animals for the power show. But I'm going to start adding, just to keep us on the safe side. We do some excavating down there. We have what I call the diggers that come in and play in the dirt on Saturday, and then they restore what they've played with on Sunday and put it back into shape. But we've drawn quite a crowd over the years when we've had nice weather with different pieces of equipment that have come down there, and it's always a a learning experience for people that have never seen that, and the kids get a kick out of it. And of course, the guys that used to play with these bulldozers and steam shovels and all that kind of stuff, they just enjoy doing it. So I'm going to ask for a motion tonight to include excavating at the Power Show. River Roundup was a huge success. We ended up with 2 teams and covered a lot of ground. We started at Foundation Park and met at the Dairy Hut, and the other team, which ended up collecting more debris because of our flood that we had. They backtracked from Bright Waters to the Dairy Hut, and we dragged a lot of crap out of there and filled up half a dumpster with stuff. And so I'd really like to thank GT Tire for taking the tires, Shackleford, Waste Management for the dumpster, Dairy Hut for feeding us, and let's see who else. Matt Dixon. It's kind of nice. We didn't have to carry all that stuff with us. We could break out and lay some of that trash that we were finding on the golf course. And Mr. Dixon came around later and picked up some of that debris. So, and of course, Rona Homes for letting us park the dumpster on their property so we'd have quick access to a dumpster. So we got a lot of junk out of the river, and as you know, I do landscaping and I have to pick up trash every day. It's appalling what people throw in our waterways. So it was a good day, but as usual, litter bugs are at the top of my list. Power Show's coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hope you'll come down and spend some time. We brought back the archery for the kids this year, so that'll be one of the big highlights again. The flea market, the craft show. We'll have our church service, the tractor pulls, the quad pulls. Weldon's Ice Cream is coming. The Lions Club will be there. Women's Auxiliary, so there'll be plenty of food. Antique and craft show. Lots of radio control airplanes. The kitty tractor pull, if you've got little kids. I think it goes by weight. I'm not sure if it's age or weight, but it'd be for little kids, not big kids. Sorry, Tim. And we'll have a car show in the afternoon on Saturday with a band. The band you'll recognize, the ones that play at the fireworks. So fun for all. Just remember, no pets, no alcohol, no politics. Just come down and have fun. Mr. Hicken, what do you got for me?
I believe you've said anything I might have talked about, so I'll say I'm done.
Okay, well, I want to go back one real quick here. We're working real hard on the comprehensive plan, bringing that all together. So I would like your names. What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, written down on a piece of paper by the end of the week, a name, an address, a phone number, and an email, please, so that we can get rolling on this. Now I'm done. Mr. Zetz, I know you have something for us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I asked council to table 2 pieces of legislation that are on the agenda tonight. They both have to do with the Main Street appropriations. It's Ordinance 2017-4295 and 2017-4296. We still have not received the certified mail green cards back when we sent the legislation with the council's intent to appropriate. So I want to make sure we have those back before you actually adopt that third reading, because technically that does have to be done. I just want to, so it's just procedurally. So if you could table that tonight, and I will probably have that ready then to go for a third reading at the next council meeting.
So go through the actual readings and then get somebody to table it?
Do not have a reading. Just just table it. Before you start to read it for a third time, I'd ask for a motion to table both of those.
On both of those. Okay, very good, sir. Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm going to fill a few roles here for Alan, who is on vacation, and also Nate, who is with his daughter, who is showing a cow tonight or something. So just a few updates. The 2017 Streets program, for the most part, is done. We're still waiting on striping to occur on some of the roadways. I'm pleased with how it turned out. Had a chance to visit the streets again today with our public services supervisor. Very pleased with how they came out. So that is complete. Also today, the Columbia Road Bridge project started. So the detour's up for it. People have been notified about it previously. So that's underway. The contract is a 75-day contract to complete that. And we'll also be confirming the dates for the Columbia Road South culvert project. And we'll be getting that information out to all of our partners here in the community as well. As far as Nathan's concerned, not Nathan, but the utilities department's concerned, they are continuing on with what they're doing. Product's good. They're testing out some additional preemptive. They're testing out different presses. The press they currently have is causing problems with phosphorus, and I can't begin to explain what all that means, but I told them I'd mention it to you guys tonight. And I also know that the utility committee is hopefully going to schedule a meeting soon to wrap up some items and discuss some items that we have moving forward. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just have a quick comment, and I'll wait till Alan gets back and reiterate it again. But Alan was very instrumental in the River Roundup, coordinating that, putting it together, registering folks. It was very professionally done, and so I'll reiterate that. But anything for BJ? Yes, sir.
Hey, BJ, on the resolution 2017-061, I know what my question was. You have in here an amount of $14,950 in your report, and in the ordinance it's $16,000 for the additional money.
It should be 14,950 is what, in 14,950 is consistent with what the street committee approved.
Well, we did, but we had a question for Alan before we said that we wanted him to answer this question. We'd approved going forward, but he was going to look at item 2 of the multi-purpose path. And that was for an addition of $2,400 on there that he was going to look into to, essentially, he and I both agreed, or I guess the committee and he agreed that he was going to look into that to see if that was actually an extra to the contract.
14,950's total includes that.
So can you verify that he had looked into that, or is that you're saying that because he has told you that it's $14,950 that you're sure that he had looked
Correct.
into that?
Correct.
Okay. So the ordinance needs amended to $14,950.
Well, if we want, yes, the fourth whereas needs amended to 14,950. The section 1 of the resolution has the correct price of 14,950.
Yeah, I mean, just technically, I don't know if you actually have to amend the whereas, because
Right.
the real meat of really what matters is after the now therefore be a resolve, section 1, 2, and 3, and section 1 does have 14,950 in the price. I think that's controlling over whatever.
So the sections are giving direction of what. to
Right,
do.
yeah, the whereases are really not, they're important for background, but they're not legislative.
Okay.
Anything else for BJ? Anything else?
Nothing.
Okay. So you covered yourself and Alan and Nate, you're all done?
All set.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Nicholson?
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda tonight is a resolution 59. It's the annual housekeeping measure where council, we received from the county auditor the rates and amounts for property tax collection. It's basically the inside millage. You guys are required to accept them. I don't know what would happen if you didn't accept them, but it's housekeeping. So I would ask for council to pass that tonight. I was able to get a summary budget book done, and you each have a copy of it at the desk. That's the briefing book, the smaller book. I just tonight at about 6:20 have a first draft of the big book. So now I've got to print that monster off and go through it, make sure all the numbers tick and tie, and that everything's numbered correctly and all of that. My goal would be to have that book hopefully in your hands before the 25th meeting, but if not, they may end up getting handed out the night of the 25th. So we'll see how timing works. But we're ready for us to meet on the next week to go over it. And if you have a chance to go through that and you have any questions, please, call, email, whatever, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Jamie?
What time is that meeting scheduled for?
6
The
o'clock.
25th
we
at
made it
6
earlier.
o'clock.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Mr. Walther.
Under ordinance, the 4294 ordinance, we have the third reading tonight for the appropriations of current expenses and such. If in regards to the police station, if that goes out for rebid, is there anything in that supplemental ordinance that matters to bidding that police station out during 2017 versus going to 2018?
No.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Jamie?
I'd just like to state that the 25th is my duty day at work. I will be unable to attend. Sorry about that.
If you want to spend some time with me when we go over
Absolutely.
it.
And I'll also say, in the past couple of years, if council members, once the big book's out, if anybody wants to schedule time to come in and meet with us, we're more than willing to do that, sit down with you and go over, answer any questions you have.
Okay, very good.
That's all I have.
Scott?
Thanks, sir. One thing that changed since my report came out on Wednesday, we did receive 2 applications on Friday, right under the deadline for the Board of Zoning Appeals, 1 variance and 1 conditional use. So there will be a Board of Zoning Appeals hearing on October 10th with 2 applications. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Scott? Very good. Chief?
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, committee chair reports. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have 2. First, Parks and Recs met last week. We had a kind of a non-traditional meeting. We actually held our meeting at COTC, called to order and then recessed for basically citizens to ask questions and look at the plan. They've done a really great job of laying out each year as they see the funds come in as to what they would get done, and kind of had them at different stations. So they had members of the board at each station to answer the questions. And there was a number of people that came through, asked really great questions. It turned out to be a very clean way to present it. I was really impressed with how it looked. My goal would be to have another one of those at some point, and trying to just get more people involved. I'm going to work on that in my ward for certain, just to try to get more information out there. I think if more people were able to see it laid out that way, that it would be better understood as to what exactly it was we're asking for on the ballot. So, also tonight we had a development committee meeting, discussed again the subdivision regulations. They're moving along with corrections, and they're finding, various things that they need to fix. The goal is to have those to council by the 1st of December, the first meeting in December, rather. So we have a chance to look over those. We had a lengthy discussion about the comprehensive plan and what moving forward looks like for that. And I think it, at least for me, helped clear up some confusion about how that is structured. We've talked about not only, are we as council members each assigning somebody to an ad hoc committee, or recommending them rather to the mayor for them to be assigned to that committee. We also are talking about, hiring a firm to help guide us through that process, to keep the committee on track, make sure we hit everything we're supposed to, in addition with working with our staff. So the committee members basically ask administration to provide us a proposal of how that structure would look, with a company working with our staff and the committee, when the committee would meet, how many meetings, how much time the staff would spend, the goals that, rather the projects maybe that Scott had laid out for us when we were looking to hire, put an additional person in that department. maybe an update on those and seeing which one of, and if any of those fall into the comprehensive plan to kind of wrap it up. So just trying to get our arms around it. I hope I hit all the points on it. There was a lot of them. So basically where we stand is the committee agreed that administration go ahead and put out an RFQ for these companies. We have no point of reference right now about money. But so just everyone's aware, this doesn't commit money. This simply asks them what they would charge for certain services, at which point it would be brought to council for that final decision. And again, the mayor did ask that everybody have their written recommendation for who they like on that ad hoc committee to him by Friday. He would like that in writing, name, address, phone numbers, and email address, so we can make sure we can get in touch with these people. We've had a problem with that in the past. Did I miss anything on the comprehensive plan, Scott, BJ?
No, I think you pretty well covered it.
Okay. And then finally, we just had, again, Scott and his crew continue to work through our codes and find all those little things that really muck up the big things. So right now, they're working on some revisions on the code on fences, the definitions, whose responsibility, that type of thing, and also some recommendations on cell phone towers, heights, locations, and those kind of things. So they will be bringing those back to the committee, and we will in turn bring them to you. That's all I have.
Any other committee chair report? Yes, sir.
I have a committee chair report for the street committee. We met on September 11th. We had quite a list of things to go through. We went through the Oak Meadow project. We received our 50% plans on that. From that spurred a change order that I believe is going to be in front of you tonight for additional work that needs to be done by the consultant. But also provided to us was an estimate, a continually updated estimate of what Oak Meadow price tag is going to be. And at this point in time, it is estimated at $628,000 for the improvements. Now that does include a very large project for off-site, I'm going to call it off-site, stormwater, $117,000. A little over $117,000 to put a trunk line, a storm sewer trunk line, on Hickory Street, which is the majority of what this change order is for, is engineering that storm drainage and doing the survey for it. The consultant recommendation was made by the street department or street committee to go ahead with that change order. The second thing we talked about was the Colmore drainage. Talked about the analysis that was done by the consultant, Strand, I believe. Yep. And talked about some things that they're going to look into further as we evaluate the Colmore drainage. As you know, the drainage was estimated. There was a couple different estimates, a low range of about $285,000 to a high range of about $440, I think, somewhere in that ballpark. So they're going to look into some issues of why this drainage is being blocked or is having problems further before we can make a recommendation on how to fix that problem. This next thing that we spoke about was the Cable Road drainage. After the heavy rains in July, there was water overtopping Cable Road for several days, actually weeks, Alan reported. There was a meeting out on site and discussions about utilizing private tile to drain that area and potentially putting a culvert across the roadway. In that meeting, both landowners were represented by themselves, and a lot of discussion of how we had gotten to this point. But in the long run, or in the short run at least, some tile was fixed to the north of the property that alleviated the standing water, but the need for actual drainage on Cable Road down to the creek was definitely evaluated, or is going to continue to be evaluated, and probably brought to council in the next budget. And we also talked about many ways of how to handle that drainage, as far as cost-wise. There was a report on retention and detention basins, the inventory and analysis, the Columbia Road culvert, box culvert. They're now looking at, this is the south box culvert, looking at starting October 9th, 45-day closure. The Taylor Road culvert replacement, they are waiting on the material to be delivered. They've ordered it. It's a 60-inch concrete pipe. I did not note when that will start, but I'm sure Alan will give us all a heads up. We went through as BJ had mentioned, we went through the the 2017 ramp. We got an update on that and where they were. There was some discussion about some change orders over there because of some complaints of chip and seal on a couple of the roads. The street committee, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, let Alan know that we didn't feel that that was necessary to go over and fog those roads. I think Alan's going to do a little bit more work on it or a little bit more research on it, but essentially it doesn't, at least what was reported was, we didn't believe this would help it structurally or add a lot of years to it, and it was a change order of a request of about $18,000. One high point would be that, and I didn't note what it was, but my recollection was that the streets actually came in about $50,000 under budget. So that was well appreciated. There were 13 items on the agenda, so you got to give me a minute here. It was an hour. It was a long meeting. We also talked about the Columbia Road Bridge, actually starting today, 75-day closure, and then we talked about traffic lights and we asked some questions about different traffic lights in the area and why they're there or why they're not there. And then there was a discussion about the widening on Watkins and Blacks Road, and where that stood as far as getting that done. There's two widenings, one on Watkins and one on Blacks. And then the last item that actually was the first item we talked about, which was International Drive and the concerns Mr. Hughes has brought to council. And Alan talked about his plan to investigate that further and making sure that, coming up with a plan to remedy that. And I think that was it.
That actually was a very good meeting.
It was a very good
A lot of good information, and I kind of got some perspective. I don't know if maybe the other council members will appreciate this or not, but so Oak Meadows running north and south, Hickory's running east and west, and when we tie that in, that'll actually take that water to the river.
That's
To the
correct.
creek,
That is
yeah,
correct.
or the river.
Whatever you want to call it.
It's a river.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So in essence, to do this project without doing that would only be doing half of the project. You're going to adversely affect the new road by not having adequate drainage.
Without drainage.
So this is 117,000 of that project. 20% of it essentially is a big piece of the project, and one we did not anticipate.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have one thing, Andy, I was thinking about, as you were talking, is there a spot where we have listed all of the closures, the dates and the potential length of time? Because when we had our meeting, he referenced a number of places that we'd have to close down, and some of them were for a substantial amount of time. It would be beneficial if we had that list to reference clearly somewhere.
I think that it was something that was on the website, if I'm not incorrect.
It is on the
Because I think we
website.
talked about.
Closures are posted on the website and our
Facebook.
social media. Yeah.
So, but is there a list where they're all at, so you can see all of them?
One comprehensive list, I don't believe so.
Could we get something like that? Nothing fancy, just, again,
Yeah, we
places, dates, and potential lengths of time.
We always reach out to whoever needs to travel.
Honestly, this was a little selfish because I came and I wasn't allowed to go down Columbia and I had to go the long way. So I was like, man, that's already? So, yeah,
And I believe there was another discussion of ODOT on 310, correct?
there was.
So you can kind of think about that northeast quadrant and the amount of
Yeah, a
construction that's
number.
going to happen in that area, and, you know, how the cut-through road isn't open. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be concerned about how to get around that area.
Absolutely.
Is there actually a sign at Columbia and Mink saying that the bridge is out?
Detour signs, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
yeah.
didn't,
Detour's
yeah,
also
because I
north
came
on
down, Quarter.
Is it north of Mink, or are you saying on
Well,
Columbia?
Either, well, it'd be on Mink,
Columbia.
either direction, I'd have to say a detour, which I saw them covered in plastic yesterday, so obviously they're there. Okay, anything else for Andy? Any other committee reports? All right, very good. Going on to old business, ordinance 2017-4294 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lee. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Ordinance 2017-4294, this is the third reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2017.
Discussion? And roll, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
make a motion to adopt
Okay.
ordinance
Got a motion.
2017-4294.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Carter. Kathy, when you're ready.
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Ordinance 2017-4295.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir, Mr. Barstow.
make a motion to table ordinance 2017-4295.
Got a motion to table?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hicken. And it's just tabled, correct? No discussion, no nothing, right?
Vote.
Gotta
Mr. Mayor,
vote on it.
we have to vote. No discussion.
No
we have to
discussion,
vote.
just roll call, please.
Walter?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Ordinance tabled. Ordinance 2017-4296 for a third reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
make a
Mr.
motion to table
Barstow.
2017-4296.
Got a motion to table, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Roll call, please.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Ordinance tabled. Ordinance 2017-4293 for a second reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Barstow. Kathy, when you're ready, second reading.
Ordinance 2017-4293, this is the second reading, an ordinance amending section 1221.05 of the codified ordinances of the city of Pataskon, repealing all other ordinances and parts of the ordinances in conflict therewith.
Discussion? Okay. On to, let's see, any motions tonight? Oh, do it at the end? Okay. Resolution 2017-059, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Hicken. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to answer Mr. Nicholson's question about what happens if we don't approve it. We won't get the money.
They won't get the money.
That's what I was going to say too. So yeah.
Mr. I don't think Mr. Smith would be, he'd be happy to keep it and spend it on something else.
So the recommendation is to approve?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we get the money.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Hicken?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2017-060, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to advertise, receive, and open bids for the construction of a new police station facility.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Carter. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I'd like to have a new police station, okay? But when I look at the income tax projections that, page 7 of the report that Mr. Nicholson provided to us this evening, I don't see how we're gonna come up with the money. I know there's been some reductions in what it's gonna cost, but it's gonna affect it, but not affect it that much. This is what I would say. I think that at this point, we have,
a ramp for the roads. We have the plan that Nate's put together for planning for capital projects in the utility department. We have the park and rec folks put together their plan. I think that it's time that we consider, and we're not going to do it tonight, but we consider thinking, when we think about a overall plan for the city, so that we don't have, we have a better plan on these large capital projects that we want to do, and that we don't end up doing something and we can't do anything at all in another area because we're spending money in just one area. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Mr. Hicken?
Well, I guess I have a couple of questions about what we were forwarded about specifically what this is for, and I know that
Dave King is here,
Dave
so
King is
if
here.
council, if it's their desire, if he could come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mr. King. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. Would you like me to give you a name and address, ma'am? Dave King, Horning King Architects, 6265 Riverside Drive, Dublin, Ohio.
I don't want to monopolize all the time right off the bat. I'll let everybody ask questions. But one of the questions that I have initially is, we were forwarded the cost savings. They're listed here. I may have some extra questions about each individual item, or maybe not. Some items I've identified. But one of my questions for you is, we got this on Thursday, and it obviously it's on here. Is there a benefit to striking so fast after the last one, meaning a benefit to doing this actual resolution this evening, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe next council meeting? Is there a benefit to getting it on the street sooner? That's one of the questions I have.
In my opinion, yes, there is a benefit. We did a survey of the bidders who bid on the project, and from that survey, as well as I talked to 2 contractors, one of whom I worked with before on another project. He did not submit a bid because he knew his number would be over on the first bid. And speaking to a couple of people in the industry as well, it is one reason why, and you wouldn't see that reflected here, that we're giving the bidders a flexibility. And I've had them say, go out either time, either wait till now or wait till after the first of the year. 2 in particular said they're anxious to get back out again. So we're giving them the opportunity to bid it with flexibility in the time. So I would like to get it started, because our goal is to go out this Thursday, depending on your approval, of course. And we're going to give them the option. We'd open it up in the schedule, if it goes according to Hoyle here, the bids would be due the 19th of October. We're giving them the flexibility of saying they may start construction November 1st, or they can wait and start by no later than March 1st of next year, 2018, so that they can look at market conditions, labor availability, materials availability, and they can decide for themselves what's to their best advantage for pricing, which becomes your advantage. We've done it before, and we were successful doing that, giving them flexibility. I specifically talked to some contractors, what do you think about that? And they like the idea. So we think that's a good approach. I think definitely part of the reason why we were over the first time, which I presented the first time, was market conditions. The second one was particularly in the standard electrical package. And we think with the savings that we're indicating here, giving them some flexibility with market conditions, and a couple of things that we're doing regarding masonry work. That was another thing that we discovered, that masonry, the masons were very busy. And we're even making a change into the simplification of our building envelope. Instead of using a face brick, we're going to go to a thin brick. Same material, same fired ceramic material, clay material, but it doesn't take a mason to put it up. Anybody who's certified by the supplier, that can be a stucco man, that can be anybody that does those trades. I know one contractor in particular is certified, and they wouldn't even have to use masons to do it. And so when I'm putting all that together, availability of labor in this case, on the brick, it seemed like a good way to go, to give them that flexibility. So hopefully that addresses your question.
At least there, I'll throw it open to anybody else.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, two questions and a comment. Just right off the bat, I'm curious, what was the electrical savings? I thought I saw it was
The electrical
around
savings
40?
here, you
40?
see it about the middle of that page?
Yeah.
It's.
Oh, yeah, I don't have it right in front of me. I've got a different one.
Well, I'll just go through all of it.
And if I can, real quick,
I just have
it's
this
on
one.
everybody's desk. This evening, Tommy. It's very small print.
I have
It's
that one.
there.
Maybe I missed it. I'm just curious, right off the top of your head, I'm just curious
Oh,
what it
sure,
was.
I'll just go through them all. Again, we definitely think part of this is market conditions, again, the flexibility rationale, but also on the standard electrical package. But part of the problem with that was, we knew our estimate was too low. So we couldn't make it up with just the electrical side.
Sure.
We had to bring our estimates up on the electrical, but still find savings, and then balance it with other trades. One of the reasons I'm talking about the brick. So the civil changes, we're going across the board with all the engineers. Their savings is $42,000. The landscape is $17,700. The architectural general trades package, $90,000. And the electrical changes is $249,000. So those, what we're estimating as potential savings is $398,700. And fortunately, that came out almost right to the nickel for the $400,000 we were over in the first bid. So we feel pretty good about that. And then also, we're hoping that the flexibility of time and availability of labor and materials will help the bottom line.
Okay, thank you for that. Totally respect Mr. Barstow's position. We do have a lot of projects in the city that need done, but I feel like, this is my comment, not a question. We've paid $500,000 to design this thing. We have an obligation at this point, I believe, to build the station. We can't just spend that kind of money and leave it, in my opinion. But I do respect where Mr. Barstow is coming from, because he is certainly right. There's a lot of projects to do. With that being said, I've said this from the beginning. I didn't really notice anything within the building that stuck out to me, but what does stand out to me is the cruiser shelter. I completely agree there is a need for that. I think we should build one, but the cost of it is, to me, way too high. And I'm pricing out pole barn buildings, and I'm not suggesting a pole barn. I'm suggesting maybe something in between what we've priced here and what I'm pricing. But you're looking, I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you remember how many square foot it was?
Oh, sorry, I don't.
So,
I don't remember.
pole barns with a concrete floor going from $16 to $18 per square foot. This thing's almost $200,000 for a 3-sided building.
Oh, I understand.
That, to me, is wasteful.
Well,
So explain to me, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a reason for it to be that much, or maybe I can't see why we couldn't at least cut that in half.
Well, that's our next thing to look at. The cruiser shelter we would still do it as an alternate because of its cost. And going to your bottom line, where you want it to be in your total cost picture, we still need to address that number. This goes right back to the masonry. One of the reasons why it was so expensive is that we were using a specially finished block that would have the appearance of brick. Now, we know for sure that moving it forward, and that's not to say we can't still investigate it, that we'll go to masonry, we'll still work with block, but we'll just paint it. And we'll paint it a dark red and brown range, which would be compatible with the brick color on the main building. So we know we can save some money there, and that's based on the conversation we had with the parent a little bit of the first time. We analyzed where his numbers were, and it was in the masonry. We worked with the structural engineers, we investigated the cruiser shelter. Okay, what are the other things that we could do? We could go to some other envelope on the 3 sides other than block or whatever. But we would have had to change the structural system, and then we would have had more money in the steel system. And we just determined the most efficient thing to do was to stay with masonry. But we'll still take a look at it. I kind of set it aside to focus on the main building.
I understand and I appreciate that, and again, I want to reiterate, I certainly see the need for the building. I mean, we need to protect our vehicles,
Sure.
so on and so forth. But is there any reason? I mean, they're making, and this is just a question. I don't want to pretend like I have know more than you do on this at all because I don't. But is there any reason why we couldn't make something, aesthetically appeasing, I guess, that is a metal building for at least, I can't see why we couldn't build that for $75,000, which is more than half of that, to match the building. Is that even possible?
That's what we have to investigate.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't take it too far along. I wanted to keep it in the same theme as the appearance you're used to with the trussed shingled roof, et cetera. Kind of set it aside and focus on the.
Fair enough, I'll let
But it's a
everybody
fair
else.
question. It is an
chime in.
expensive item.
Mrs. Carter?
I'm just out of curiosity, because when we started this process, it too has been a priority of mine to make sure that we have this new police station. I think that we're far overdue for it. But when you come to things that are costly because they're just aesthetically pleasing versus, maybe pared down quite a bit, that's still clean and, and compatible with the surrounding area. Is there any other places like that in the construction where we could back off, like, concrete that looks like brick?
The cruiser shelter is a fair statement of how we can address that to still be attractive but save some serious money. On the building itself, we did do a lot of simplification. It still has brick. It's not all brick. There's wood siding as well as the brick. And we actually put in some more siding, took some brick out, but without reducing the aesthetics of the building. You can do things like lower pitch roofs, but then it becomes pretty unattractive. So it was a balancing act, no question. And that goes right back to trying to balance the aesthetic appeal, which we all agree is important, as long as it's affordable. I understand that. But we did a lot of things to simplify the envelope, as I was saying. And we think that will help. We got some comments back from a couple of contractors we talked about. Tell me about the wall sections that you looked at. Is there something that we can do to simplify the envelope, without losing insulation value? And that's one reason why I went to the thin brick.
Okay,
So it's a balancing act.
okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
May I just make one, I'm sorry?
Sure.
One just occurred to me, one of your comments too. Instead of doing a plaid wood window, we're going to a fiberglass window.
Okay.
Met with Pella people, had them come into the office, and we're saving some money on switching to that
Okay.
product. But when you look at it from the outside, you won't see
Wouldn't know
the
the
difference.
difference. Okay.
Just hold that
Yes,
for a
sir.
second, and I'll kick around. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
I just wondered if, I attended the meeting, that this was like the review of the bids and some ideas for reducing some other items. Have you looked at all of those items? One of them, for instance, I believe you mentioned about some carpeting. Maybe there was going to be less carpeting in some areas that didn't need carpet, essentially, and then have you looked into that issue? And this is kind of going to Tom's point about, we've got to look at bringing this back down into budget. And I understand that the material costs were higher than what was expected the first bid around. You've adjusted these numbers to reflect that. So now we've got to look at what materials can we not install. For instance, carpeting in some areas, or the cruiser shelter in one area. I know you've taken out the back gate. You've done some landscaping augmentations. You've moved stuff over to, like, for instance, the trash dumps, the trash enclosure. That's now a general fund issue, so it's been taken out of what we would be going into debt for. Were there any other issues that we brought up on that day? And I don't have the date. You remember the meeting? Yep. Anything else that you can think of that doesn't affect the needs assessment, but might just, might be something we can do some cost savings on?
We looked at everything. And
Okay.
it reminded me of a meeting that we had. One of the things we did was we removed the bowed window where the chiefs and deputy chiefs' offices were, and we made it the same construction as what happens on the south end where the physical training room is. The detail is exactly the same. Again, the key here being simplification, repetition. So instead of it sitting out a couple of feet, it comes out 8 inches, but all it is a double wall now, just like that side. So that was on the outside. On the inside, we looked at ceiling tile, we looked at carpets, we removed the epoxy flooring idea. We removed the athletic flooring, rubber, because that is something that could be purchased in the future, if not donated. That's a, really good item to, somebody would sign off on, for instance. We're changing all the ceiling tile from some places it was a 2x2 scored, 2x4, but it was scored to look like 2x2, well, there you go, to look like 2x2. We're just going with straight 2x4 everywhere. So we're saving a little bit of money there. On the carpet side, and we were sitting in the office going through some of these finishes, and we decided that we wanted to leave the carpet alone because we didn't want to get into a situation where we knocked that down by $4 a square yard, and we get into something that's going to wear out over some time. We decided to keep the strength of that carpet to where it should be for commercial use. So it was a trade-off. We looked at a lot of things. We were removing some paint from walls that we were painting before, like in the mechanical room, for instance, and the inside of the evidence room. We're just going to leave the walls unpainted. So we were looking here and there and everywhere we could find what were the trade-offs in terms of maintenance, longevity, initial cost, and that's what's reflected in the $90,000 line item. And on the electrical, there was a number of things in a similar vein. The type of light fixtures, et cetera. Simplified a lot of the lighting without losing code.
Do you have a comment, BJ?
He covered the painting. That's what I was going to mention. As far as one of the things that was looked at every room, what could be painted, what didn't need painted, all that stuff. He covered it.
Anything else, Mr. Walter?
I have a question for Jamie and BJ. So we have in here the 500, or the 5 million, we got the 500,000 in fees that have been paid, give or take. What other costs should we anticipate besides the soft costs and what other additional costs have we run across, I should say, besides the hard costs that have increased our budget from what we thought it was we thought it was going to be before we bid it the first time? So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if I remember correctly, and this is what I want you to try to remind me of, there's about $200,000 in soft costs that we came across for additional things that we didn't budget for initially. Is that correct?
No, soft costs were budgeted for. Soft costs include fees, I should say bidding, permit fees, furniture for the building. Those were included originally.
In the original budget?
Correct.
And you have those in here under your soft costs again?
Correct.
It's the very top of the sheet, the
Actually,
$212,000
it's been-
number.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For instance, here's be a good example, the structured cabling that your specific IT person would be doing, not through the general contractor, but it's a direct cost. And so we consider it a soft cost, even though it's a construction cost. We consider it a soft cost because it's not a category that the general trades touch or the electrical trades touch.
I want to also say that the furnishings has been cut from 200,000 to 150.
Right. And I think you made the comment that at that meeting was the furniture was at 150, and you thought it was potentially even $20,000 less than that at that time. But that's yet to be seen. And I'm not saying maybe there's some contingency in here that we're already kind of building into it.
Yeah,
besides the 100,000.
I met with a woman who represented a well-known, established furnishings company here in Columbus. I reached out to her again to double-check the numbers. She gave me a very detailed list, and we will revisit that.
Okay.
There's nothing in here that we're not going to take a solid look at, unless it's a permit fee. That's not very good.
Mr. Hicken?
I got a quick question, and it's kind of a Jamie question. So it has to do with, and maybe a BJ question, but we see 42.5 roughly, which was paid for out of the general fund. This goes a little bit more towards Mr. Barstow's question, which is, my question on that is, where did we find the money for that? Is that
First thing I'll say, that would be, where did we find the money for that?
the reason I ask is that I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul necessarily.
Not at all. You know, we always have money budgeted for, and correct me if I'm wrong, for facility improvements, that sort of stuff from the general fund. You know, general fund is not income tax, so it's not allocated for police or streets. You know, this is something that could certainly become a 2019 budget item. You know, depending on construction schedules and everything. So I where did we find it? It's just budgeted. So it's not necessarily a function of finding it. It's a
Well, it
function
wasn't,
of
I'm kind of thinking of,
budgeting.
I was thinking that if that is now included in the budget, did something fall off to make that available, or who knows, it may
When we
just,
say budget, we're talking about the project budget or the city's budget?
city budget.
the cities,
What's that?
the cities.
I don't know that there are officially appropriations for those yet. That's not to say that we don't have, we do have some buckets of money that are set aside for facility improvements. We've had to replace some HVAC stuff, so I don't know where we stand on that, but again, this isn't gonna happen until 18 or 19, so we can easily make sure that's included in those budgets.
And I guess my final question would be, as I look at the savings that have come off, it's come, best guesstimate, best hope, is that it does fall back down into the range that is doable. Overage, what happens if, I don't know, something crazy, like we dig into a septic tank or something like that at the property? You know, it's something, certain, you know, what do we anticipate that the fluff, is that the right word?
Contingency.
Contingency plan, that's a very good word, much better than fluff.
Well, there's a contingency built into this.
Yeah, there's like,
You'll see
Cover
it,
those.
it's either one
The
fifty.
right
100,000.
above the green
Right.
bar towards the top of the sheet,
Yep.
there's a $100,000 contingency.
Thank you.
The one thing that we weren't totally sure of, the civil engineer investigated it, was where the sanitary line was on the west side of the building. What we've done here was, we've assumed that it will move.
Okay.
Now, if we discover, once they really get it, some excavation started with the foundations on that side of the building, that it doesn't need to move, then that would be a deduct change order.
Just for clarification, that's the 6-inch service to the, shelter back there.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay. And that was one of the items that I think we talked about, maybe the city investigating, to check to see if that's, because I was believing that was already out of here.
Well, the 11.5, I think that's what it was. The
That's
city
exactly
could
what it was.
certainly investigate that. And I know there was also 100,000 removed. There was a concern about relocation of sewer. There was a confusion in the
That was
bid.
11.5,
Yeah, that was the 11.5, yeah.
to
That-
move it further west.
Right. So the city can certainly cover that to investigate.
So we've assumed that it will move. Not an alternate. If we discover again that it doesn't need to move, then it's to the good.
That's all I have, thank you.
Can-
I just want to make sure everybody has spoken first before we go round again. Mike, do you have anything? Suzanne?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Mr. Barstow.
So this is a question for BJ and Jamie. When we first, when we had the first bid, we thought that it would cost the city about $390,000 a year. It was, some years was higher, some years was lower, somewhere around in there, for 15 years to finance this. We were also planning on getting some money from the rental of the building. And I think that was that's something like 100.
Approximately about 100 to 150,000 a year.
I thought it was, say, 130, maybe that's just what we averaged it out to be. So let's assume that that rental money number stays the same. What's this going to cost in terms of repayment if this deal goes through, roughly?
You know, what we're looking at right now is about $36,000 more than the original bid, I think. 36,000 or so.
36,000 for your base bid.
Yeah,
Your base
so
bid.
it's going to be very similar to that 390 that we
Very
were
close?
before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question.
Mr. Hicken, anything? No. Mr. Lee? No. Mrs. Carter?
Just a point of clarification, the budget document that you have and the budget document you're going to the big book assumes a $4.5 million bond issuance and then debt service on that. So if we need $4 million, then it'll be even lower.
Right, yes,
I
I
just wanna let you-
understand.
a point of clarification for the budget.
But in order to, some plan, we have to make some assumptions that I think the original, I don't remember what the financing number was on the original bid, but we're estimating it about 300, again, almost $400,000 a year. I think that was in the I think it was a little bit over 4, I think.
There's about 4 and
Well, then also, I think, did that not include the the refunding of the note, the $500,000 as well.
Which we've paid off, yeah.
We paid that off.
Which we paid off, so.
So we're only doing 4.5.
Okay, any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention, and I think our architect will agree with this, the architect plans, they don't expire. This can be put on the shelf if we needed to. And I think from what I thought I heard Mr. Barstow said was, there's some really big, and we found this out very clearly in the street committee, and I think it's been relayed through the utilities and everybody else, that, there are a tremendous amount of costs coming at us for projects. And drainage projects, I think I heard Jason say 50 to 60 drainage projects throughout the city easily that need to be done right now. I think that while I think there's been a lot of good work to reduce the cost of this, and I think there's still some ideas out there such as not doing the police shelter, and maybe some of the alternates get reduced down a little bit, this number can come down. I think it has to be said that, even if you bid it and the number comes in slightly higher or even within the 10%, there's not an absolute that this has to be awarded. I don't feel that there's it's not an emergency. While it would be very good to have it, and the sooner we get it started, the sooner we're going to have it, that's the truth, and the sooner we'll have it paid off. At the same time, there are, again, reiterate, there are a ton of things. I mean, Oak Meadow is $280,000 over budget. That's half of the payment that we'd make, or not quite half, of the payment we'd make in 1 year for this police station. That road's going to last 40 years. I mean, there's things that we got to take in mind, and I agree with Mr. Barstow 100%. There's a lot of expenses coming at us that if we're going to actually do this, maybe it's worth looking at bigger debt to get some of these other things done that we need to get done also. I don't know if that's what Mr. Barstow was heading towards, probably not, but there has to be some plan to do this instead of piecemealing it, and maybe that's what we can look at. Anyhow, I'm going to take your opinion that going out sooner rather than later is better, that the flexibility is going to give us the best price possible. I think that when we did go out, it was probably a bad time. Well, no doubt it was. Hindsight's 20/20. I don't know that the trades are any less busy, quite frankly, that I've seen at least. I'm hopeful that the changes that have been made have gone to different trades that aren't as busy. And I would agree with you, masons are horribly busy, electricians are horribly busy. So hopefully we can take advantage of that if we do agree to go back out to bid.
May I respond?
Yes.
Follow up on that? That is exactly why we're doing the flexibility approach. Weather, labor, materials, to give them that option to deal with conditions that exist. And just those two trades is what we look seriously at, masonry and electrician.
Any other?
I don't want to belabor. I just want to clarify what I was talking about earlier. Mr. Walter touched on that. I guess what I'm saying is that we ask the other departments, the departments that we fund and have oversight over, to have a plan for why they're going to work how they're going to spend the money that's allocated, where the needs are, and all that. To me, the police station is an infrastructure issue that we need to deal with. We can't just ignore it. But I think that what we're asking of these other departments, we should ask of ourselves, and that we look more comprehensively at the infrastructure needs of the city, including the police department. That it's part of that, and it's a need that a department has, and we have to consider, I think in a more comprehensive way, how that balances with drainage, the utility department, road projects. All these other things, before we commit ourselves to 15 years at least at $260,000 a year. So it's not like for example, we deferred the Columbia, one of the projects, I think it was on Columbia, because we just deferred that because we thought that it would be too inconvenient. We can't defer this note once we sign it. It's a 15-year mortgage, and we have to maintain it. And I think I'd be much more comfortable in seeing what the CIP comes back in, when that starts coming in next week, and we can see what the other departments want and what their, again, what the updated long-range goals are. I went back and looked at what we had in years past, and how we feel we can balance that. So that's just my concern with this.
Any other discussion? I'll just say, you know, this station is when we started talking about this, this thing was gonna be built to handle our needs for the next 30, 35 years. And that's gotta be tabled into this. And no, Andy, I wouldn't call it an emergency, but I would call it a very unsafe situation to have, as much as I love the old town hall, it is not a police station. And I just, again, the residents and our police officers need to be safe in today's world. So if there's not any other discussion, we'll call the vote. Kathy?
Barstow?
No.
Lee?
Yes.
Pickens?
Yes.
Walter?
No.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Resolution 2017-061, a resolution amending Resolution 2017-018 for the design of the Oak Meadow Drive Improvement Project.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hicken and seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? And roll.
Yes.
Pickens?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Any motions tonight?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hicken.
I'd like to make a motion to allow excavating at the Power Show.
I got a motion? Second. Second by Mr. Barstow. Discussion? Yes. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Mayor, I think that the motion needs to include provisions for safety and roping off to who will be monitoring that area once the hole is dug before it gets filled back in, like possibly the next morning, just for safety reasons.
Very good. Do we need to, is that just a note taken, or do we need to amend it?
I would amend the motion.
Yeah, you may as well amend the motion.
Can we,
You want to amend that?
probably other comments. Do you have a depth idea? How deep is this hole going to be? 5 feet? 10 feet?
5, 8, 10 feet at the most.
Okay, so the other part of the motion, I would say, is just make sure that they lay the sides back appropriately so that you can't have cave-ins. If you have a one-to-one slope, that's an unsafe situation. So the proper layback of the slope would be appreciated so that if it were to have some kind of rain event or something, it's not going to fall in on a kid that would maybe be in there. The second one would be an ingress and egress out of the hole. Some type of ramping down into the hole so you can get in and get out safely. It's a safety thing.
I got you. We've been doing this for 15 years without any situations, and these guys that play in the dirt have been playing in dirt for their whole lives, and we've never had any incidents. But how do we amend this to make sure everything's covered?
As long as you say your motion's amended to include that, I think we can pick it up.
I'd like
All
To
safety.
include safety measures? Okay.
Is that agreeable? Well, I'll make that. I'd like to amend my motion to allow excavating at the Power Show to include safety measures. I'll let it sit at that, and let's see if that makes council happy. Everybody knows what was said.
You still good with your second, Mr. Barstow?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? And roll, please.
This is the motion to amend. Walter?
Yes?
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Pickens?
Yes.
Okay, amendment passes back to the original motion.
Pickens?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other motions? All right, additional citizens' comments. Anybody wish to speak tonight? Okay, here we go. Roundy round. Start with Mrs. Carter.
I have nothing.
Mr. Barstow?
I did go to the park board levy meeting. It was very interesting. I had a chance to go around to the different sections and listen to a lot of good comments and questions. It was good to see folks get out and get involved in that. It was very well done, and I do hope that that the park board is able to do another one. Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and Alan's not here, but to Alan and the street committee, I think the paving around town, the improvements, Township Road, I think it's well thought out, that hit the spots that needed, I think a lot of attention, and just wanted to say a good job. It looks really, really good so far.
Pass it along.
Mr. Lee's correct. I've had a chance to drive on some of those streets. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's really good, really good.
And I think the streets that were chosen were appropriate. I think that you guys did a really good job as a committee and as a department, determining what we needed when we need so much. So, well done.
Timothy O'Hicken?
I would echo the paving. I would say personal thanks to Nathan Cooey for helping me with a citizen who was concerned about strand excavating in his yard, or strand investigating in his yard, would be a better way to put it. And my thanks to Mr. King as well. There were several questions that I had coming in here tonight, and you answered them, and I really appreciate you doing
I'd
that.
like to second that, too. Thank you, Mr. King.
Oh, that Mr. King. Yeah, thank you,
That
sir.
one.
Oh,
My
Yeah,
thanks
you're
to both
welcome.
Mr.
No,
Kings.
What I answer?
Uncle Dave. We'll call him Uncle Dave. Okay. Anything, Mr. Zeb? No. Suzanne?
Awesome, thank you. Paving's awesome. It's fun to see people out riding their bikes on the roads that are repaved. Township Road and the railroad tracks looks awesome. I'll have the chief back. Hope his daughter's doing well. It's exciting, and that's all I have.
I just want to mention real quick, I went to Morpsey meeting last week, and of course, you probably saw it on TV, but Columbus is a finalist for the Hyperloop. If you haven't heard about that, that's high tech, and of course, somebody's going to have to come up with the cash to do this kind of thing. But can you imagine going to Chicago in 20 minutes or Pittsburgh in 20 minutes? It's kind of neat, but I don't know. Science fiction. We'll see what happens in the next 10 or 15 years. Mr. Walther?
Yeah, a couple things. Went to a HOA meeting with Ms. Carter and with BJ, and Mary, you were there too also. One of the comments that came up, or came from that, as we were talking about the park levy and discussing factual issues are, their answer that came out of it was, or their comment that came out of it was, this is a no-brainer. And the next comment was, how do we tell everybody? Which really drove another piece of conversation about trying to get information out to the public. And it's been something that we've talked about since, God, I remember, since I've been coming to council meetings. How do we do that? I mean, I even remember some of the candidates for appointments for the council talking about that exact issue and how much of a problem it is trying to get to people to explain it. The lady that was there just shook her head and said, if you were able to tell everybody if you have a $100,000 valuation, it's $26. She said there's no question. That's just so easy to figure out. But all the other stuff that comes into play. So another younger lady, much younger lady than
42?
Well, I don't know, maybe 22, 25, maybe. She starts talking about all these other social
42.
medias that I had no idea what she was talking about. Mother's
Twills and-
board and
yeah, all
this
these
and that
things.
and coffee tables and whatever else that she was talking about. And she wanted to get, how can she get the information to get it out to these multiple places? And BJ, you and I both look like deer in the headlights when she was talking about this. But I really feel like the next step for us is to talk about maybe finding a crew, or finding a person who has this information or this ability to get this information out, because both from the park board meeting and from this HOA meeting, I didn't hear anything negative from either meeting. Once they understood what was going on, once they understood there was a plan for the use of the money, they understood what the city was doing to promote, to protect that money to be utilized in the parks, they both all threw up their hands and said, this is a no-brainer. So I also wanted to thank Mr. Ramsey for putting together this report. I went through it. I'm hopeful I can meet with him to talk to him about it. But, there's a long list of people. I wish you wouldn't put my name on here. But, there's a long list of people that volunteer that, we can't thank enough for the parks, and the projects that have been done. So those were my two items.
Yes, Mr. King.
So when we're talking about getting information out, we thinking somebody or some service, some way to.
We've got to find somebody who's smarter than we are right
I
now,
agree.
as far as it comes to
Well,
social
for me,
media.
it doesn't
A
take much.
17-year-old high school girl.
Maybe a 22-year-old woman. I don't know.
Right.
But whatever it is,
Okay.
it doesn't matter. Somebody that can.
But
do
beyond
it.
the levy, we're talking about.
Everything.
Okay.
What's going on? What the city's functions are? What the volunteers are doing? What opportunities are out there for volunteers to do? The board positions that are available. We seem like we don't communicate. We try our best.
We're just limited, but I agree with you totally.
And I'll go one step further, BJ. I've thrown this out too. We're spending money to bring companies and businesses and attract people here. I would say this first step's more important. And communicating with our community that is here is an extremely important item. And I don't know that, even though we try, and I know we spend time and effort to do it, according to these people, we're not getting the word out. So, and maybe we don't know how. I know I don't know how. So, there's social media out there that's just unbelievable, apparently. That gets to everybody. Not to me, but everybody else.
It depends what age bracket you're in.
Right.
Because some people, we don't have the thick newspaper for our specific location that we live anymore. It's a very broad newspaper. So a lot of people don't pick that up anymore. A lot of people hit social media, but they're flipping through it fast. It just depends on what age bracket you're in and whether or not you want to seek it out or whether or not you want it delivered to you. So I know it'll be reversed, and that's not my time to talk, but that was my thought.
No,
I'm 42. Sometimes things just come out. I don't know.
We had as much as the newspaper isn't being read, I still had a lot of comments and compliments over the years. The Advocate and its parent company decided to let Mr. Chad Climack go due to budget issues, and so we have to work even harder now, double and triple our efforts, because even though the newspapers weren't being read as much as they used to be, it was still one of our channels of getting some information out. Because obviously when he called me to tell me that he'd been let go, I was like, wonder who they're going to replace. Oh, that's right, they're not going to replace him. They've cut him. So there's nobody coming to Pataskala to cover Pataskala in the Standard. So in the Post, what little information was in there isn't even in the bag anymore, hanging on my mailbox. So at least those were little things we were doing, besides what Jess is doing and our quarterly newsletter and all the things we're doing with Facebook and the website. But you're absolutely right.
Again, don't take it wrong, Mayor. I'm not complaining about what we're doing.
No.
It's just, that's exactly the point, is we just lost a huge reporting
for our town.
segment is gone.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get zero.
But some
He
people
did a
don't.
great job for us, by the way.
He did a tremendous job.
Yeah, we were trying to hit every source we possibly could, and now we're, so anyway, that's a good idea. We gotta find a 17-year-old that's not going to school that knows all about all that stuff.
They can do it while they're in school. They're multitasking and.
Yeah, we just have to find other ways to
We
get
can
it out
talk-
there. So,
yeah,
Mr.
we can talk
Powell?
elsewhere.
I have nothing. I move we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mrs. Hayes. Discussion and roll.
Carter,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Put your chairs down, please.
You think I'd remember that by now?
Interesting.